Hey, everybody, welcome to What Drives Us, episode 2444.
No,
Wednesday,
too many.
September 13th. I'm sorry?
Too many.
Too many fours.
200. We've done this 243 times. I mean, not all of us, but most of us, or some of us. Anyway, it's episode 244 for September 13, 2017. My name is Russell Frost. I have the good fortune to be the host of this show, and we've got a great show for you tonight with a special guest, and I'm going to get to him once I introduce the Rogues Gallery of panelists that have showed up tonight. I have no idea. I feel like I owe people money or something. But nonetheless,
I just heard it was free beer.
Oh, yes, it is free beer. Whatever free beer you have there, you're more than welcome to drink. They didn't give you the old thing like I was sending you beer, though, did they?
I thought that's what was going to happen.
I'm sorry. Someone lied. Someone lied.
That was me, for the record.
But I can tell you that it's not the man that I'm about to introduce. He is our nominal. That sounds kind of bad. He's our executive pro tem co-host. Someday Danny Cooper may come back.
No.
Danny who? We know not of whom you speak.
But nonetheless, he's here, our man in Chicago, Mr. Tony Schaefer.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Good to be here tonight. My inebriation is brought to me by the Odell Brewing Company, a 90 shilling.
Go Colorado.
Yeah. I think there's some, it's infused, I think. It's got a good color and good flavor. Looking forward to it.
Nice.
With what?
Weed.
It is from Colorado.
Yeah,
It is Colorado.
That was the Colorado joke. Yeah.
Fail your drug test.
Or pass with flying colors.
Who will not fail his drug test. He is our man in the Chevy Vault in Canada, Mr. Mark Coughlin.
Oh, Canada.
Thank you for that interlude, Evan.
Wow.
And Canadians cover their ears everywhere. But anyways, welcome to the show, everybody. Glad to be here and looking forward. That's a good show.
I was tempted to throw off my headphones dramatically. And it wasn't your singing, Evan, which was certainly serviceable. It was the face you made. So let's introduce him. He is a guy with a couple of Teslas and, believe it or not, 2 more in order. I don't know what's wrong with him. Dr. Heal Thyself, Evan Fusco.
Good evening, everyone. I am partaking of a spotted cow straight out of Madison, Wisconsin, this evening, and I'm glad to be here. And at some point, if we have time, I have to bemoan. I had to actually take the Prius on a trip this past weekend.
You burned gas?
I know. It was painful.
How many Teslas do you have to own before you stop driving gas cars?
Apparently more than 2. Well,
so I want to ask real quick, Evan, where did you come across that new Glarus?
I am not able to reveal my sources.
Okay. So those who don't know, New Glarus does not distribute outside Wisconsin. So that one would show up in Nixa, Missouri is interesting.
Is it against the law to take beer across state lines?
Actually, yeah, it is.
Are we incriminating ourselves, or should we just move along?
He's not saying he did it. So,
all right.
Officials take note. Evan did not.
There was a Prius from Wisconsin full of beer.
So
It's like Smokey and the Bandit modern day version with the Prius.
In the Prius, though, right? Well,
yeah, so I actually have a friend that lives in Madison that brought this down a few months ago, and then I actually just got another case tonight from another friend who ran a triathlon up there and visited the brewery and brought me back a case.
those are good friends to have.
Half spotted cow and half I can't remember, stag something. It's their Oktoberfest. So
And the New Glarus Brewery is phenomenal.
yeah.
If you ever get a chance. Yeah.
So we hear. Well, speaking of phenomenal breweries, who is it going to be? Who am I going to introduce now? Phenomenal breweries. I'm going to go to the Pacific Northwest.
We do have some awesome beer here, so very good choice. Hello from Oregon.
This has turned into a beer podcast. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Patrick.
Sorry,
I see Mr. Patrick Connor, and you said hello.
Yes, I'm Patrick Connor. I'm with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association, and I'm happy to be here tonight. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And last and definitely not least, he is the brains and the brawn behind Boulder Hybrids. You can find him at boulderhc.com. His name just happens to be Mr. Paul Guzik.
Hey guys, glad to be back. And I'm drinking, I think I drank this last time, Buffalo Gold. That's all that was in the fridge, but it's a local beer and we're supporting them.
Paul's customers, please bring him beer.
Yeah.
Well, please.
Getting low.
And that was the last of the panel, but not the last of the people. If you've been paying attention, there's another face down there that we need to introduce. He is our special guest this evening. He is a well-known EV, well, I'm going to say EV evangelist. Although his official title, as I learned before the show, is EV-angelist. He drives, one of 5. He's owned 5. Yes, count them, all 5 fingers, Chevy Volts. He also sells Volts and Bolts. He has a website, My Electric Vehicle Journey. That's MEVJ.us. You can visit him there. His name just happens to be Mr. Buzz Smith. Buzz, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
So, tell us your story. Tell us, how did you become an EV evangelist?
Well, I was a happy Lexus driver. We'd had 4 ES300s between my wife and myself, and we'd keep them to 150, 200,000 miles, and we're very satisfied. And one of my pet peeves is texting while driving, and the reason is, when I worked for Apple, I was going to work one day. The whole freeway had come to a stop, and I look up in the rearview mirror, and here comes this SUV, and the guy's got the phone up, texting. And there's nowhere for me to go. There's no way out. And he's coming so fast that I, honest to goodness, thought, okay, this is the stupidest way to die ever. And I quit looking in the mirror and just kind of looked down and waited for it. And at the very last second, he locks up the wheels and crushes, no lie, crushes the back of my Lexus up to the back window.
Wow.
And it was so loud. The police, the reason the whole freeway had stopped, they were responding to an accident below us. We were up on an overpass, and they all stopped and looked up, and a woman police officer pointed to herself and pointed to me, I'm coming up there. And I have to admit, the Lexus was a very well-built car. The only way inside the car you knew there was anything that had happened is the little coin thing popped open and all the coins shot out. But the door still worked. I was not injured. They kept trying to get me into an ambulance. No, I'm fine. But I had no money budgeted for a car. So it's time to go find a vehicle. Gas is $4.50 a gallon. I told my wife for years, the next car for me is going to be a 2-seat convertible. I told the guys earlier here that I had a 74 TR6, Triumph TR6 back in the mid 80s. And I absolutely loved that car. It's the only car where a girl ever whistled at me while I was going down the road. Any guy will tell you, if that happens to them, they want to have a car like that. So I told her I was going to go buy a convertible. And so I went out and shopped around. And in fact, she found a Lexus convertible that was 4-seat so that in an emergency, I could rescue my wife and my daughter. And went and put $500 deposit so she could come in and we could sign all the papers. You did what? So ended up not getting that after all, and took over my wife's Lexus, and she got a hybrid. It was a Toyota Highlander hybrid, and that was our first step into the hybrid world. So that Lexus that I inherited from her started having problems. One year it was over $5,000 in repairs and broke down in the middle of the freeway one day. And I just said, that's it. I've got to find something else. But I had no money budgeted. So I went and test drove a Toyota Corolla. And, I'm not insulting people out there that like the Toyota Corolla, but I drove that. I drove a Prius. And one of the things that I thrive on is acceleration. I want that torque off the line. And my wife was actually the smart one. She came up and said, well, what about these electric cars? Maybe we'd save so much on gasoline that it would make it worthwhile. So I went to a Nissan dealership on a weekday, and there's 4 guys, no lie, sitting in the showroom around a card table. And I said, I'd like to see a Prius. And literally the salesperson turned to me and said, oh, you don't want to see the Prius. Okay, this happens in the real world. Yep. And I said, no, I really do. And he said, oh, well, next year's Prius is going to have twice the range, come back in a year. So I left that dealership, ended up at another Nissan dealership with my wife. We test drove it. It was my first experience of electric torque, and I was ready to sign the papers on the spot. Again, my wife's the smart one. It was a Saturday, and she goes, well, let's go home and talk about it. So we went home. She just started tearing up Google, looking into the battery issues that were just coming out. This was July of 2012. Well, the battery range would get me to work and back, but if I started losing capacity, no way. So I had to look for something that was a hybrid, but I knew that I wanted something that would stay electric as long as possible. So the next stop was a Chevy dealership, and it happened to be the biggest Chevy dealership in the world, the largest inventory, and it just happens to be in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I called up, asked what the price would be for a Chevy Volt with certain options, and the guy gave me a price, and I said, okay, I'm on my way to test drive it. Went in, test drove it, loved it, got it on the spot, decided to lease it because that early in the history of EVs, I figured, okay, technology is going to change very quickly. I don't want an antique 3 years from now. So I'll go ahead and lease it and look forward to the next generation, whatever that might be. So I come home with this Volt, and my wife pulls into the garage in her SUV, and she looks down her nose at it and said, oh, that's your car. I have no interest in driving that. I'm like, yeah, So I said, that's fine with me. Literally less than 2 months later, she went and got a Volt. We leased a second one. We told people we revolted. So,
revolted.
Yeah. So that started. It just lit me up, and I was constantly telling all my friends how much I love this car, and they're finally, okay, shut the hell up. We get the idea that you like this car, and I had to find some kind of an outlet, so I started blogging, and I knew nothing about blogging. I mean, I just surfed the web. I was like anybody else, but I started just writing all these stories. That Rush Limbaugh was saying that they would just burst into flames, or you could only go 40 miles and you had to stop and charge overnight. And I wanted the world to know that wasn't the way it was. And so I started this blog, and all you guys, we were talking about it earlier, you sit in this room alone and you're typing these articles up, and you don't know if anybody is seeing them at all, but you just have to get this stuff out of yourself and out into the world to share your experience. Well, about a year into my ownership, it was coming up on National Plug-in Day. Now it's National Drive Electric Week, but back then it was National Plug-in Day. And I called up my sales guy, Kevin. I said, Kevin, what are you guys going to do for National Plug-in Day? And he goes, well, what's that? And I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, Kevin, you got to know this stuff. You sell these things. And, I explained what it was. And I said, you're going to have tons of people coming out there to look at the Volt that day. What you really ought to do is invite all of us Volt owners back. Throw a hamburger at us. We'll hang out with you all day. We'll, talk about these cars, because nobody loves an EV like someone that owns one. And the dealership hated that idea. They never want anybody in between the salesperson and the customer.
Yeah.
But after talking to me, they actually put in their ad in the Dallas Morning News that they had a Volt specialist that was going to be there that day, and it was me. It was
unbeknownst to you.
Sales meeting on Saturday morning. They have 50 salespeople there. Again, this is a huge, huge dealership, and they wanted me to speak to the sales staff about why I felt the Volt was so important for General Motors and so important to our country, the United States. And I didn't know it at the time, but about 3 sentences into my presentation, the general sales manager at the time leaned over to the showroom manager and said, that guy should be working here. But they never said anything to me. So at the end of the meeting, the GSM came up to me and said, hey, looks like you can chew gum and talk at the same time. So if you want to hang out with us, that's fine. You're welcome to hang out all day. And if you're successful at helping us sell some Volts, we'll throw some money at you. Holy cow, I had the time of my life. And there was one sales guy that came up and said, introduced somebody to me and said, I don't know anything about these Volts here. You talk to this guy, he knows about them. And we made a sale. Part of it is you're sitting there going, well, if it's this easy, but not really. Yeah. Anyway, so we made a sale, and I went home lit up. I'd been an aerospace manufacturing engineer, actually a manager in charge of multiple departments at an aluminum foundry for 5 years. When I left there, I ended up at Apple. I was a manager at an Apple store for 3 years, and I've never owned a PC in my life. All I've ever owned is Apple equipment. I got to work when Steve Jobs was at the company. I never met him. In fact, I was probably terrified to meet him, but I was at a retail store in Fort Worth, Texas, and I was a business manager, so I led the team that sold to businesses. And one of my customers had been really trying to recruit me to work on a manufacturing engineering product, so I went to work as a consultant for him. But I was looking for something that had meaning in my life, and I came across this book, Strength Finders 2.0. If you haven't read it, go get it, take the test, and follow its advice, and you'll find a career that it just lights you up every day, where you drive into work with a big smile. So I went home and told my wife, oh my God, I had the greatest time. What do you think about me going to work for a car dealership? You know, we were a year into our volts. We thought we were tree huggers before. And, but we had this big house. We had, you know, like everybody else, kept buying bigger and bigger houses. We'd finally achieved what we thought was the peak. And in the summertime in Texas, we could have an electric bill that was $650. So we realized our carbon footprint was too big, and we bought a house that had it was going to be much more efficient. We had it built, had two 220 outlets put in the garage, of course, and eventually put solar panels on it. But we could qualify for the loan on either of our incomes. And so I told her, what do you think about this? It's 100% commission. If I don't sell a car, I make $0. And again, my wife is phenomenal. She said, you know, you made a lot of money for us at a time, and you hated your job and you were miserable. She goes, go have fun. So the following Monday, I called up the showroom manager. His name's Hank. And I said, Hank, are y'all mailing the check to me? Do I need to come and pick it up? And he goes, well, we're cutting it today. You know, you could come out tomorrow and pick it up. And then very sheepishly, I said, Hank, you know, if you guys ever need anybody that understands the Volt, and he just cuts me off. He says, come in and see me tomorrow. So I went, they sent me off for the drug test. 3 days later, I'm working there. And I know nothing about car sales. And this is the, you know, again, a huge Chevy dealership, and it's not a training dealership. They don't hire rookies. And I'm sure all the other salespeople are looking at me going, yeah, he's going to last a week. And Hank was really cool. He, as he's setting up my business card, he goes, what do you want your title to be? And it just occurred to me. I said, well, how about EV Angelist, capital EV Angelist? And he said, that's brilliant. We'll do it. He's my manager to this day. And I went to work there, and it was terrifying. And people would come in to buy pickup trucks, and I would just hand them off to another salesperson. And over time, I realized if I don't sell something other than the Volt, I'm going to starve to death. So, I ended up, you know, learning about pickup trucks, learning about SUVs, Corvettes. You know, I sold, one of my early sales was a Corvette to a guy, and it was just an amazing thing. The income it brought in, you know, was phenomenal. And about maybe a year into it, they had announced that the Volt was not going to come to Texas. The second generation, the 2016, was only going to be sold to the states that adhered to the California Air Resources Board rules. Well, my lease was going to end, and I had nothing to step into. So we ended up buying a 2014 Volt that we knew we were going to give to our teenage daughter. It's probably the safest car we could afford to put her in. And when my wife's lease ended, we put her into a fully loaded 2015 Volt, and I drove my daughter's Volt until the second generation finally made it to Texas. I got the first 2017 in Texas, and it's just a phenomenal car. But when I got to fly to Detroit, the dealership sent me to Detroit to see the unveiling of the second generation Volt and the Bolt EV prototype. And you know, maybe 6 months later, I went to the owner of the dealership. And remember, plug-in sales, Volt sales are like 1% of total sales for the dealership. And I just told him straight out, I said, we're not ready for the Bolt. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, if we can't charge them, if we don't have chargers out where the inventory sits and they're not charged, you can't take them on test drives, you can't drive them home, we're not going to sell a single one. And the owner of the dealership, Tom, and this is classic Chevrolet, I'm going to throw a plug out for him. They're in Grapevine, Texas, which is in the Dallas-Fort Worth marketplace. He's a visionary. He built this place from scratch, and it's, again, one of the largest. So he said, go tell the facility manager what you need, and we're going to do it. And this involved cutting trenches through the parking lot out to the cars. They're all under canopies because we had a lot of hailstorms in Texas. And we started putting up level 2 chargers. And I went to him later and I said, you know, we need a different kind of building and environment for selling these things. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, this is a very long sales process. It's an educational sale. And it reminds me of Apple. I said, moving somebody from Windows to Mac OS is just like moving them from gasoline to electricity. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of questions. The customer is not going to buy on their first visit like a Corvette or a pickup truck. So we've got to have a place where they can come in and learn about this stuff, but we have to spread a salesperson out among multiple customers simultaneously, or they need to be able to learn about the vehicles without there being a salesperson present. And he took a building that we called the retirement home. It was where salespeople that had worked there for decades would come in when they felt like it, maybe sell 1 to 3 cars a month. And he had some of those guys were retiring, and some of them he moved to other buildings. And he gave me a building.
Holy cow.
And said, design it the way you want it to be. And so this place looks like kind of like an Apple store. There's 4 big, wooden tables like you'd see at an Apple store. There's 5 big screen TVs. And at one end, one of the TVs is in a lounge that we can close off. And they're constantly playing 24 hours a day, slideshows that talk about the cars, videos, a lot of them produced by GM, some of them done by me, where someone can come in, and if we're all out doing test drives, they could just sit down and learn about the vehicles without a salesperson being present.
But
and
I'm sorry to cut you off, but have you been, or your manager been able to share this concept with higher ups in GM and kind of show this?
Regional managers have come down and seen what we've done, but it still seems to not be proliferating out into GM. We had a GM powertrain engineer that just happened to be in the area, was driving by the dealership and pulled in, and he mentioned to one of the sales guys in the main showroom that he worked on the powertrain for the Volt. So I'm out at lunch, and this guy calls me up and says, are you on the premises? And I said, well, I grabbed a sandwich. I'm on my way back. And he said, we've got a powertrain engineer that worked on the Volt. And I'm immediately, don't let him go. I'm on my way. So I hooked him back to the dealership and took the guy down there. We call the building Electric Avenue now. It's, our nickname for it. It's actually, technically, it's the EV Hybrid Sales Center. But he started taking photographs of this, and his frustration is the same as every Volt owner's, is why doesn't GM advertise this? And he started taking pictures. He was going to go back and talk about it. And GM, if you're out there, I want to be the face of Bolt and Volt to the world. Hire me for that.
Sorry, Buzz, but I think GM stopped watching the podcast a long time ago.
Well, if I can download the video, I'll play it in Electric Avenue and promote things even more.
Do you play the Volt Dancers?
How's that?
The Volt Dancers, have you seen that?
No, I'm going to go to that now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You'll watch it once and never again.
We are now. We're about 450% of our quota for plug-in vehicle sales. We, at one point, had about 25 of the new Bolt EVs in stock. That's now been whittled down to about 11, and we've got another 30 on order. But in oil, Texas, everybody thinks of Texas and big oil.
Mm-hmm.
But in this state, we have shown that these cars can have an impact. They will sell. And there's a lot of dealers that, to this day, don't focus on them. And by the way, that's actually cruel of me. It's not the dealer. It's the salespeople. If the salespeople know that they're going to spend much longer time and get a much smaller commission, they're going to talk you out of that car. If you meet somebody like me that's specializing in selling a car like this, you've met a special kind of idiot. I go into work every day with a smile on my face. I am saving the planet. I literally believe that with all my heart. And anyway, I'll shut up for a while. I've been monopolizing everything, but I love what I do for a living. And if you are in Texas and thinking about the Volt or Volt, come see.
I just spent 9 days in Grapevine or in Irvine.
You're kidding me?
No, I was deployed to respond to Hurricane Irma, but I got stuck in a hotel in Irvine at the Weston Airport for a whole week. We drove right by all those car dealerships along that row where I don't even remember the road, but I wish I'd known. I'd have come by to meet you. I tell you what, man, you should probably give your manager a hug every day for having the vision to allow this to happen. That's
especially in Texas.
Absolutely, really remarkable. It's a very cool story.
Thank you.
It is.
Yeah, that is an inspiring. I don't say that often, but an inspiring story. I mean, it really is. One, the evolution that you made, the realization that once the EV bug gets in your blood, it doesn't come out, and then most people are not. I don't want to say strong enough, but most people won't just jump into something that's new. And then there's also those people that don't get the kind of support that your wife gets. So when you're done hugging your manager,
in that order though, manager
first. Yeah, manager first, then wife. Yeah.
And honestly, I can't say enough about the owner of the dealership, Tom Durant. I mean, he has backed this up with money. I mean, it's been tens of thousands of dollars he invested just believing in me. And at one point, I met him on the showroom floor and talked to him about how I wanted to change the sales cycle. And he said, I built that building for you. And literally, the hair on my arm stood up. I got goosebumps, and I thought, I will not let this fail.
Yeah, and that's amazing. You talked about how they weren't going to bring the Volt to Texas. The dealership here where I live, Springfield, Missouri, isn't going to buy the hardware to service the Bolt. It's just
very expensive.
It wasn't terribly from what they said that they needed in addition to the Volt, but they still they don't care. They don't want it, and so you're in a pretty special place there that they had the vision to do that.
And it eventually is going to become. I believe there's a tidal wave coming that most people don't see, and it's that these cars are very sticky. Before the show, I'd mentioned this story. That TR6 convertible that I had, I loved that thing. And a customer pulled in with a Pontiac Solstice GXP Turbo, bright yellow. I mean, just 2-seat roadster, classic car. I knew I couldn't get the second generation Volt. And so I actually considered buying that car. And the guy threw the keys to me and said, hey, take it for a spin. And I went on my usual Volt test drive. And there's a place where I tell the customer, okay, punch it all the way to the floor. And so I got to that point and I punched it all the way to the floor, and I felt the gasoline lag, and then I felt the turbo lag, and I just knew I'm never going back to gasoline. And so many of the people I know in this world are exactly the same way.
Yep.
So when especially the ones that lease, and I encourage everybody to lease, because then those vehicles become available to people that can't afford the brand new ones or can't qualify for the income tax credit. And it becomes a great used car market. And then those people get stuck on these cars. And so there's this wave that's happening. And, you see all the predictions by the year 2020, by the year 2025, it literally is going to be that fast when enough people discover this that it takes over.
Hey, Buzz, has your owner shared any financials with you that this, you said 450% of expected sales or something? I mean, is that, I guess where I'm going, my brain's going a couple steps. I mean, is there an opportunity for you to present it like the annual dealers meeting, this concept, and is in front of all the dealers? Because I know they have these big meetings to show what concept you and your owner and manager have developed there, and that how other dealers could potentially reap the benefits of that by both engaging their local EV evangelists and by making a model similar to what you operate under?
I'm just a grunt. I've never even thought about approaching him about something like that. I was hoping that maybe GM would see what we're doing, see the results we're getting, and maybe invite us to do exactly that. But I've never, as full of myself as I am, I'm nervous enough and insecure enough that I haven't approached him with that.
Yeah, because showing that it works in Texas, if this worked in California, they'd be like, yeah, but that's California. Showing that it works in Texas actually means something.
I think, Buzz, I gotta say, personally, I realize that it will feel like you're bragging on yourself to say, look what we've done here. but that's what an evangelist does.
I agree. I mean, maybe this isn't supposed to be a support group, but I tell you what,
I think we are a support group.
Weirdest support group I've ever seen.
You are in a unique position to change GM's approach to this. If you can make a convincing argument that look, it's about the money, right? Everything's about the money. All right. And you are potentially in a position to go in front of these dealers that are reluctant, that are resistant, they don't like it, they don't understand it, they don't want to like it or understand it. You show them dollar signs, you show them success, and you can change the entire approach of that company to EVs and plug-in vehicles. And I think it's an interesting opportunity that you may have to reach out there and engage your owner to share some of that financial data with you to be able to make that convincing argument. But I think you're in a unique opportunity here to make a big difference.
Yeah, you show them how they can make money, and you can save the world.
And now the general public is more aware of EVs with the Tesla stories and stuff. And a lot of it is just, like you said, education, telling the customer, hey, this is not a golf cart. You can go more than 40 miles a day. And once they realize it can fit into their lifestyle, they'll be an evangelist too. So,
and I'll take a slightly different tact. You know what? Just keep doing what you're doing, and keep selling cars, and someone will notice, because that's what GM cares about. In the bottom line, they want numbers. And if you keep being successful in this center and you keep doing that, it will make an impression. I mean, obviously,
somebody's going to want to know why.
Yeah, you've made an impression on the person who owns the dealership, who spent a significant amount of money to support this, and that's impressive. So at some point, that's going to leak up, and at the very least, other dealerships are going to go, "Why aren't we doing this?" You know.
My big dream right now is just if I could tour the dealerships in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and teach them what we've done.
Yeah,
because this isn't about me. This is about, like you guys were saying a minute ago, this is about saving the planet. This is about introducing people. And I think that's actually, for me, it's about saving the planet. But if these cars had no acceleration, I would not be interested in them. It's about introducing people to something that's so much fun that they just don't believe it. When I take them on that test drive, there's this one street in Grapevine Police, I'm not going to tell you which one it is, to the floor. And then they'll do that, and then I'll put them into L. For those of you not in the Volt or Bolt world, if you put the shifter into L, it's more regen, and so you really feel the deceleration. There's a paddle on the steering wheel to add to that. And so I'll show them that, and then I'll put them into sport mode and say, okay, punch it again. And that remaps the accelerator for more aggressive acceleration. And the smile on these people's faces when that happens, they just can't believe it. And it was the same thing that happened to me. And it's the same thing you see on those Tesla videos, the guy that would, take his friends out in the car in ludicrous mode and then have them punch it. And, these people would scream expletives. It's not quite that aggressive, but it's not about saving the planet necessarily for the consumer. It's about, this is so much fun.
Yeah, it's a win on many levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's again, I think your success speaks for itself. I mean, you could certainly make the case, hey, other people should do this. You should do this. Look at what, but it's the idea that you can sell these cars where you are, at a Chevy dealership, when people have lots of other choices there. There's lots of other exciting things to capture their imagination. Yet they're talking to you, they're spending the time with you, and they're open enough to go, you know what, I want this, and they're buying from you.
And I think that's a lot of stories go that way. People, and most of us here, we were mildly curious or, remotely interested, and we happened to find that one person who either shared in our enthusiasm or at least took the time to tolerate this new technology and, present it in a way that wasn't adversarial. And that was it. It was that one hook. It was somebody taking the time to explain it to us and give us test drives and not try to sell us the Toyota Corolla. And
some of the horror stories I've heard, there is a danger there too. I saw on Facebook that a woman had bought a Bolt EV, and the salesperson had told her that she could add DC fast charging later, which is not possible. It has to come from the factory that way. And people have walked in, oh, I'd like to take a look at the Bolt EV, or I'd like to look at the show. Oh, you don't want to look at that. You know, there's a lot of battery issues. And, you know, there's a lot of negative press, and a lot of it is coming from inside the dealership itself.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And GM's got to wake up to that. And I think that, you know, of course, I think I'm a great model for this. Go get an owner that's looking for something to do different in their life, something that'll give their life meaning, and hire them, even if it's just a technical assistant that helps salespeople move these vehicles at first. And maybe that would have been a good role for me, where I wouldn't be quite so intimidated by big pickup trucks and SUVs and learning how to sell them. But if we had that person that was a go-to person, just yesterday, I sold a Bolt EV to a F-15 pilot that had fought in Afghanistan. And he's just left the military, decided he wanted to get a Bolt EV. He had a Volt lease, and so he knew the technology and everything. But we were doing my usual test drive, and I showed him about L, and he goes, oh, I wish they'd had this in the Volt. And I said, well, they did. Oh, my God. He goes, no, I mean, the first generation Volt that I had, I said, they've had this since the Volt came out. And the dealership he had bought from was clueless. They knew nothing about it. Mm-hmm. And another customer of mine told me that how they ended up with their first Volt was a dealership down in Austin, Texas. Austin's got it's a blue spot in the center of Texas. A lot of liberals, a lot of environmentalists, and EVs are selling well there as well. But he'd gone down there, and he said they had a woman that knew everything there was to know about the Volt, and it made all the difference in the world. He had really decided not to get the Volt until he met this woman, and he got one from this dealership in Austin. So the recipe's there, and it's obviously you can replicate this. But
have you had the opportunity?
Go ahead.
Have you had the opportunity, or have the other sales people at your dealership been receptive to learning about the Volt from you, or not really?
Most of them, especially the Bolt, if someone walks up and wants to take a look at the Bolt, they'll just say, oh, go down to that building and see Buzz. And when it came time to staff that building, out of 50 salespeople, nobody wanted to move down there. And basically 2 guys got drafted to go down there with me. And one of them has since moved back to the truck building. But the other gentleman, he's a great guy. He's very intelligent. But he had been the second most successful Volt salesperson at the dealership, working in our internet sales department. And he and I have really come up with a teamwork deal down there, where if we have to split the deal and cover each other, that's fine. And we're running on all cylinders now. Well,
all electronics.
Yeah, but he's become a really good compadre down there with me.
So Buzz, I think you're in a unique situation to give us some insight into a long-standing gripe that we've had on this show. Uh-oh. And we've touched on it so far. We've said, does Chevy know what you're doing? Could you talk to Chevy? How can Chevy implement this? So many times on this show, we have griped on the difference between manufacturers and dealerships. Specifically, the manufacturers do not, quote unquote, run the dealerships. So where I'm going with this is, you know, you're in a great situation at a great dealership and a great owner, and other dealerships have the right to say, well, I'm not going to get the equipment to work on the Bolt. Screw you, I don't care. And can Chevy say, no, you're mistaken, you are going to do this?
My understanding is no, they can't. And, you know, it's not just the tooling to work on the car. If you're going to sell the Bolt EV, you're required to get a DC fast charger. And the charger is $14,000. Well, if you're a small town,
and you've got to train the techs to do it.
Pardon me?
You've got to train the technicians.
Yeah, you have to train the technicians. You have to get tooling to actually work on the vehicles. What we found was the $14,000 for the charger was just the beginning. We then started looking at hooking it up, and it's 215 amps. Well, the average American home, the total service to a home is about 200 amps. So they wanted another, I think it was $17,000 on top of the 14 to bring in an extra service panel just for this DC fast charger. So ours hasn't been hooked up yet.
Wow.
GM's requirement is that you buy it, and we'll eventually get it hooked up. But we're basically paying off all the other things that we've done so far. But yeah, GM doesn't seem to be able to force it down their throats, especially small rural dealers. They're just, if they sell one of these vehicles a year, it's just not cost effective for them.
So is this a situation in which, we hear the argument that, well, dealerships are protecting the consumers from the manufacturers, and, we're doing you a service, and that's why you come to a dealership and they don't sell directly. It sounds to me in this one, quote unquote niche area, that the dealerships really have the possibility to do the consumer a great disservice.
And I would agree completely. But it all comes down to dollars. And so I'm hoping that the example that we're starting to build is what will get their attention when they realize it can be profitable. But again, it's not the dealers, other than having to buy the tooling. It's, can they get their sales staff motivated to learn about these vehicles? And the thing that hit me recently is, maybe the reason that I've had some success is because I've been driving one for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I know what the daily life of living with this vehicle is. I know there's no problem with charging. I don't care about public chargers at all. I charge at home, and fortunately I get to charge at work as well. And that's all I need. And if I have to switch to gas, okay, I switch to gas. But if the average salesperson doesn't live that experience, how can they share that experience? So it's almost a suggestion that I would have for GM is put a salesman in one of these for 2 months for each salesperson.
Or let salespeople lease them for $50 a month or something.
Yeah.
To get them.
Yeah.
At our dealership, we've had 8 salespeople so far lease Volts.
Right.
And some of them at the end of the lease went on to something else just because it was so much cheaper. The new Chevy Malibu hybrid, they had such great deals on it that they went back to gasoline. But some of us just can't make that jump back.
Yeah.
Buzz, what is the #1 selling sedan car at your dealership? Is it something like a Malibu or a Cruise?
Probably the Malibu or Cruise.
Okay.
But for the first maybe 2 or 3 years, my #1 selling vehicle, of course, was the Silverado 1500 pickup crew cab. My second best selling car was the Volt, and my third was the Corvette.
Wow.
As of about a year ago, my Volt sales suddenly took off, and I'm almost 2 to 1 Volt over pickup over my entire career so far at the dealership, which is almost 4 years. So it is rapidly accelerating into the electric vehicles. And there's a saleswoman that's in the main showroom that anytime I'm walking through, she'll look at me and she just knows. She goes, "You're selling a Volt or Bolt right now, aren't you?" And I said, "How can you possibly know that?" She goes, "It's look on your face." And again, I can make a lot more money selling a pickup. I can make a lot more money selling a Corvette, but there's just nothing like that look on a face when they first press that accelerator to the floor and get pushed back in that seat and just don't expect it. And I love that moment. That's the moment that I want to share with everybody. And, I'm getting to be an older guy. I'm not rich by any means, but I don't have to make a lot of money to be happy. I've found that what makes me happy really is more fulfillment in my career rather than monetary gain.
Right.
And I'm making a good living, don't get me wrong, but money's not my primary factor anymore.
But it must be really satisfying. Like if someone comes in to look at a Malibu and the Volt isn't even on their radar, and then you can educate them and then sort of move them over to the EV side.
Actually, one of my favorite questions when whatever vehicle they mention, but especially if it's something that's fuel efficient, I'll say, "What got you interested in that vehicle? What is it that focused you on that?" "Well, I really want to get good mileage." "Have you ever seen a Volt?" And I'll start talking about how I'm getting the dollar equivalent of 100 miles per gallon, where the Malibu hybrid's 46, 47 miles per gallon. And they're like, "Oh, come on." I said, "All right, come on with me. Let's go."
You got them at that point.
Yeah.
At that point, I've got them curious. And the sad thing is the way they set up the federal income tax credit, somebody walks up and sees that window sticker And I've seen it when I'm inside the building and I see a customer walk up to a car. They walk up, look at that window sticker, and do an about face and almost run from the car. And I've got to go out there and explain to them what the deal is. And in fact, every entrance of every building at the dealership now has a poster that I created. That's the Uncle Sam, I want you from the 1940s, but it says, I want you to save $7,500 on your income tax. And the conversation started where they go, well, what's this about? Well, let me tell you about this. And that's one of the hooks that I use to bring them in.
Awesome.
And I have a self-serving question. Are you allowed to sell cars to out-of-state buyers?
Yes. In fact, I've had calls from as far away as New Hampshire where they've thought about coming in to get one. And I've had people fly into the Dallas-Fort Worth airport, which is literally 10 minutes from us. I pick them up, when they come out of the terminal, and bring them over to the dealership, and they drive home in their new car.
Because I don't know if you're aware, Buzz, but in Colorado, there's a state rebate of $5,000 on Volts and Bolts. But the dealers here are typical Chevy dealers. They don't care. So if I run across anyone interested in a Bolt or a Volt, I'll send them your way. And you can pick them up at the airport, and they can drive up to Colorado.
Yeah. In fact, I need to come see you.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to go to Colorado.
There you go.
Recently, something's changed there that just sounded interesting.
The legal weed.
so Buzz, you must be coming.
You can see it's the microbrewery industry.
This is the homebrew stuff that I read about. Yeah. No, I've been going to Estes Park since I was 8 years old. I absolutely love Colorado, and I'd love to find a dealership up there that wanted to learn how to sell Volts and maybe put me up for 3 months. I'll come and teach them everything I know.
There you go. There you go. Buzz, unfortunately, we're just about out of time.
I told you to have a hard time shutting me up.
Yeah. No, it's
not you up at all. I was completely failed at that.
I was riveted. Honestly,
that was a great story.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say, you know what? We're going to move all the news and Patrick's story to next week. Is that okay?
Pat got bumped.
I need to do one thing first, though.
Please.
That the story that's getting bumped is that I was on a conservative talk radio program this week, and the reason I was on there was to plug National Drive Electric Week, and somebody in our club had the brilliant idea of, hey, well, we need to go and talk to the conservatives about it. That's the people that aren't aware of this. And I was like, that sounds like a great idea, until I found out I'm the one that they volunteered to go on and talk. So I could tell the story about what happened, but National Drive Electric Week. You can find an event near you at driveelectricweek.org. And our event is this Saturday, the 16th. We're going to be at the Washington Square Mall. We're going to have the new Leaf there. We're going to have some Teslas there. We're going to have BMW and Audi dealerships there with plug-in cars. We're going to have ride and drives. You can talk to owners about their experience with it. And just like Buzz said, getting behind the wheel and you get that EV grin, it is exciting. It is great, and it's an experience. If you haven't done it, you should try it. And they're really, really fun. There you go. I kept it short.
No, Patrick, thank you. I wish I didn't have to make it short. Next week,
Patrick, one thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but it's looking like the Dallas-Fort Worth National Drive Electric gathering that we had last Saturday is going to end up being number 2 in attendance in the nation in Texas.
That's awesome.
That's great.
The other hint I would have for you, when you're talking to conservatives, and I live right in the middle of a whole bunch of them.
No. In Texas?
How would you like to quit funding terrorism?
Yes.
Putting money in the pockets of the people that want to kill us, and that is something that will resonate with them.
Right. Yeah. One of my taglines was, "We need to stop borrowing money from China and sending it to the Middle East."
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Of course, it got talked over by the host, who controls the volume knob. That's in a lot of my comments.
What is that like? I wonder if the host controls the volume.
You wouldn't know. You just let us go on as much as we want.
If I turn Patrick's volume down, can we hear Patrick? Oh,
he's off.
I never thought of that before.
As I was saying, Russell is the best host.
Yeah.
ever.
Smoking bullshit. But hey, Buzz, thank you so much. It's a wonderful story, and we're glad to have you on and share that with everybody. I mean, and you know, there are a few other people like you sprinkled around the United States, and I say this because I'll take personal ownership here. I've talked a lot of crap about car dealers. For the most part, I think car dealers should be hunted down and killed. But there are a few all over the United States. Tony just bought a car from one in Madison. You work for one in Plano. There's some dealers in California that are fantastic.
And Russell will only maim those.
Yeah.
I had a great experience at Wilsonville Nissan. They had their salesman they put on salary to sell the electric cars because nobody wanted to do it, and that was how they got him to do it. And he was smart. He came to our electric car club and talked to people that know this stuff, and he was like, please educate me. It was a really good experience.
And I think
there are ways to
realize there's a threat on the horizon. You've seen the Carvana commercials. You've seen that people typically don't like the car dealership experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so what is our value add? What are we bringing to the table? Well, if you're buying a pickup, virtually nothing. You know what you want, you come in, you buy it, you're gone. But if you want an electric vehicle or a plug-in hybrid, you need information. And then we become consultants to help you make the right decision. That's the way that dealerships are going to survive. If it just becomes a transaction, we will be replaced by websites.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have fancy stores you went into with salespeople for rotary dial telephones, right? I mean, the model has to change, and the way that we market and sell, and the buying experience and the educational experience that goes along with it has to change too. And despite the resistance of people in rocking chairs like Russell.
Now don't mess with us old people now.
Well, I think for Buzz, what also helped was you weren't a car industry guy. You were just a consumer that loved the product and said, hey, I want to get involved in this, versus some guy who's been selling cars for 30 years who all he cares about is his commission check and not what's right for the customer. So I think that adds credibility, and I would imagine your customers can see that when they meet you, and your enthusiasm and all that makes them, a good buying experience. So
absolutely,
we need more people like you to join the car industry or car retail industry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. People that are passionate about what they do rather than just being passionate about making money. Nothing wrong with that, but it certainly is nice when someone has an interest in what they're selling and an interest in the people that are buying it.
And that's
and can intelligently answer questions like, how can I plug it in? How far does it really go? And, and not just make stuff up.
That's really the whole Tesla model of having a referral program. And, when I go and I'd give somebody a ride and I'd let them slap that accelerator to the floor, it's that same thing, and it sells cars. That the enthusiasm from somebody that you know and trust and can feel the authenticity of their belief in that vehicle goes a long way.
Absolutely.
We call that butts and seats.
Yep.
Yep. Evan, you told me that if I ever floored your car, you'd kill me.
I did?
No, you didn't, but I just like to say that,
So Evan, did Elon send you that shirt or what?
No, I bought that at Kennedy Space Center.
Oh, you don't get a free shirt if you buy 2 Teslas?
No, I've gotten plenty of free goodies.
Yeah, you got a free kitty car. Buzz, this is the part of the show where we do shout outs, and I'm going to start with you. Anything you want to plug? Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, just out to the audience, especially those of you that have not driven a plug-in vehicle. I don't care what brand it is. Go get into a plug-in electric, hybrid or electric vehicle. Try to find a knowledgeable salesperson and go experience what this is about. And the other thing I would tell you is if you walk into a dealership curious about these cars and the salesperson either tries to talk you out of it or is not able to answer your questions, walk out and find a dealer that can answer those questions, because you need answers to make the financial investment. Go get the right dealer and you'll have a great time. There's a lot of really good electric vehicles out there.
And if you can't find a dealer, find an owner, because they're going to be better salespeople than you're going to find in most dealerships.
Yeah, you might. Your first question when you walk in the dealership should be, "Do you have an evangelist?" And if they say no, walk out.
Wrong dealership. Absolutely.
Or if they say, "But we have a great deal on the Chevy Cruze."
Yeah, there's an answer.
Walk, run. Well, hey, Paul, any plugs this week?
I'm going to give a plug to Buzz's dealer, the Classic Chevrolet in Grapevine, Texas. So anybody close to there or willing to go there, I would say go see Buzz if you're going to buy a Chevy EV or a plug-in hybrid. He seems to be the guy.
And even if you're not close.
Absolutely. And again, you can follow Buzz on the web at mevj.us. My Electric Vehicle Journey. That's what that acronym is for. And figure out what Buzz is up to. Evan?
Hey, I have one shout out. I'm shouting out to my son, Heath. He today was named a National Merit Scholar semifinalist, and I'm super proud of him. So that's what you get.
Excellent.
Way to go, Heath.
That was lovely. Evan, right on. Heath?
Heath.
Yeah.
Right on, Heath. Mr. Connor.
I've got two. So my first one is going to be a shout out to Tesla. So I sent my car in for its first annual service, and the loaner I got for the day was a P90 DL. So
nice.
Yeah, the 0 to 60 time is exciting. That was a lot of fun. Of course, I didn't.
And then it governs at 80.
I didn't go over 65, as far as anybody knows.
Except Tesla, because they have the data.
They know.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Although I have to admit, I really enjoyed the X a lot better than the S as far as getting in and out of the car. That S sets low. I like my X.
Yes.
Have you ever tried to get into a Roadster? That's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. Roadster.
Oh, but I want to do it.
Can't wait for the next Roadster to come out. That'll be exciting. And I want to mention National Drive Electric Week again. As Buzz mentioned, some of the events were last weekend and some of them are this weekend. So we sneak 2 weekends in there just to give everybody the chance. So go check one out. And like Buzz said, it's an experience. You should try it out. And hey, Buzz, thanks for coming on. You are a great storyteller. That was really inspirational.
Thank you, Patrick. And I want to tag on that as well. In the Dallas-Fort Worth area this Sunday, I'm going to take a couple of Bolt EVs to the city of Irving. It's a Run for the Sun. It's a fun run out there, but we're going to have some Bolt EVs that you can come out and test drive. And it's Sunday. I can't sell it if I tried. So you can just come out and no obligation, just have some fun.
There you go. Right on. Tony.
That's me. So several shout outs. And one, of course, is the National Drive Electric, like everyone else has said. I will be in Madison, Wisconsin this Saturday morning from 8 until noon for their Drive Electric in Madison. So if you happen to be in southern Wisconsin or northern Illinois, come out and see us. And that is going to be on the 100 block of Martin Luther King Boulevard. I want to say that's in a parking lot of some store or business, but I don't know where that is. So anyway, that's that. I want to say thanks, of course, to Buzz for coming in. Speaking of Madison, I did recently buy my Prius Prime from Smart Toyota in Madison, Wisconsin. Worked with a guy named John Dolan who knows about as much as we do and is a great sales representative when it comes to plug-ins and hybrids. He really knows his stuff. I mean, he's the Buzz of southern Wisconsin.
He's more of an advisor than a salesman.
Yeah, he is, and just an all-around great guy. Communication-wise, and I had to order the Prime. So as soon as my Prime was allotted, he sent me a text to let me know. And as soon as it was on the boat, he sent me a text to let it know. And as soon as it was in port, so the communication was great. And when I went to go check out some Primes at Smart, his was charging out front. So it's another one of those owner salesmen. So yeah, plug that. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to 3 people. The first one being friend of the show, Austin, who I think you guys know now works at a Toyota dealership. And so Austin is a
He's
Prius
an advisor now too.
Yeah, so he's a Prius enthusiast, and I think he has an insight. And he was tickled to death when he got a job at a Toyota dealership working with hybrids. And then also JT and Bruce in the chat room. Thanks, guys, for spending the evening with us.
Thank you. Absolutely. Nicely done, Tony. Mr. Coughlin.
Yes, a shout out to those north of the border. If you are going to be in the Kitchener-Waterloo area this Saturday, the 16th, we are hosting our own event for National Drive Electric Week at Kitchener City Hall between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. Please come out and join us. We are, according to registrations on the website, we're the largest group in Canada. So we're quite happy to be #1 in Canada. Oh. And we look forward to everyone coming out to learn about the cars, speak to owners. And we have a number of cars coming out that you can test drive for free. No salesman going to be involved. So please come out and visit us and say hello and learn about EVs that day in Kitchener, Ontario.
Absolutely. As always, I've got a few things to say, so forgive me. As always, I want to thank Michael Manring for our theme music. Visit him at manthing.com. We thank him for the free use of our wonderful theme. Visit us at Facebook at facebook.com/whatdrivesus. At Twitter, guess where? At What Drives Us. YouTube.com/whatdrivesus. And that theme keeps coming over and over again. You can see us all sorts of different places. We love it when you subscribe on YouTube, because then you get automatic notifications. Come to Facebook and argue with us about the news. Check out the news that Patrick and Tony and Philip Barclay post there. All sorts of cool stuff. I want to thank all of the panel and, of course, Buzz, who's not usually used to this sort of thing. Thanks, Buzz, for coming on.
You're welcome.
And 6 of you? Was there a rumor there were bonus checks going up?
Twice the pay this week. It's all about the beer.
Yeah, the free beer. That's what got my attention.
That's it. I don't even know what to say. I'm kind of touched. I'm gonna be a little emotional. But thank you, Paul, Evan, Patrick, the shiny guy from Illinois, and Mark for all coming. No, that's Tony. For all coming on and hanging out with Buzz for an hour. It was a great show. And thanks to all of you. You guys are the reason we do it. So the viewers and the listeners, we will look forward to seeing you soon. Download us next week and find out what drives us. Bye now.
I'm empty.
Oh, see you next week.